Hello, hello. How is everybody doing? I am so pumped for tonight. It's going to be fantastic. We are going to cover a lot of ground. I'm going to be 20 weeks pregnant in a couple days, so you will see a little baby bump here. So that's what's going on there. And if you have any questions that pop up as I'm talking, go ahead and put it into the chat. I want you to feel free with being able to ask those questions and to be able to express yourself. And without further ado, let's get going. And I know that some people ask some questions. I'm going to tie in some of those in this beginning area, and then we're going to get into some of the actual exercises. So first is going to be overview, ideology, training wise, and then we're going to pop into some actual like exercising parts. And we're going to kind of go through some of that because I feel like both are super important for making sure that you stay injury free and that you don't make some of these common errors when it comes to actually strength training. So, as you look at building strength, there are two things that are the biggest components of strength building. One, rest. Two, consistency. Those two are going to put you forward in your ability to gain strength, your ability to change how your body feels from strength training, and change how your habits are from strength training, and to make sure you add it into your life appropriately. Because I know we have some people in here that have been with the membership for a while, and we have some people that are brand new to strength training and or are starting to add it back into their lives with it. And so whenever you need consistency is at the beginning and also throughout, but that's when you're going to struggle with it the most, because a lot of times we get DOMs, especially whenever we're starting something new. And there were a lot of questions. I even got some of the emails about delayed onset muscle soreness. Now, anybody know actually what DOMs is? Can you put down there? I'm just curious to know what you think it is in there. DOMs can occur from 12 hours to 24 hours, even 72 hours after you work out. Some people said lactic acid. Yep. Some people say when you get really sore 2 days after the event. That is true. It's like micro tears. They used to think that it was from lactic acid, but it's actually not been shown to have that much correlative effect from how much lactic acid you have to your delayed onset muscle soreness. And this is also what plays a role into as we age, we tend to get more DOMs. We also tend to need more rest. And so it kind of comes into play with that. There's a couple different things. I said it's micro tears in the muscles. It can also be some micro tears in the connective tissue. That includes your tendons. It also includes like how your muscles and tendons join and how your tendons to bones join. So as we think about our muscle, we have our bicep muscle here. How it connects to your bone so you can move is via a tendon. And so it goes muscle, tendon, bone connection. And same thing up here, muscle, tendon, bone. There's two different ones for that because it's a bicep. So that's what we think about when it comes to connective tissue. We also have other parts of connective tissue, our ligaments, and what holds together some of our muscle fibers. As we age, we also lose the amount of muscle fibers that we have, so we have less of them. And if we're not used to doing a move, then we will not use our brain to body connection as well. And we will not use our full muscle when we're doing certain moves. And so certain areas of your muscle will get used more so than other areas of your muscle just because you're not used to using that muscle as frequently. You're not connecting to it. You're not understanding how to integrate it into the actual exercise. And so DOMS is like one of the biggest things that keeps people from being consistent. It makes you too sore. Then you're like, well, I'm already sore. I'm not going to go work out again. But one of the actual bigger things to help you with decreasing DOMS is to do active recovery. This is where you increase your blood flow as it goes and surrounds your body. Because as we increase blood flow, then what's called you get your groceries and you get your trash taken out. And so if you have micro tears that are going on in your muscle, your connective tissue, it needs more nutrients. It needs its trash taken out. Okay. It needs the things that our inflammatory response gives us whenever we are doing and having that blood circulate our body. We need that. And if we don't do as much because we're sore, then we're missing out on that chance to increase our blood supply and to help those areas heal. We're basically promoting healing. You can't make something heal faster, per se, but you can eliminate some of the things that are barriers to healing. Okay, if they need more nutrients, if they need more things, more groceries, then they need the blood flow to give those groceries. If they need some of the kind of the after effects of eating the groceries and helping that heal, then they need the trash taken out to make it more space for more nutrients. And so having active recovery is super important. The other aspect in this of active recovery, anybody have ideas of what active recovery would be here? Because I think that's another question of what should I do then if I'm supposed to do something? What would active recovery be and look like for you? Treadmill, less strenuous exercise, lighter weights, an easy ride. Yes, lighter activity. It's exactly right. You guys all have the right idea. Walking the dog. Perfect. Yes. The key parts is that we're getting some movement. We're getting those muscles to turn on and turn off. Mobility work is on the fence there. That's not quite as much blood supply and movement that we need. Your body does need that. It is helpful for it, but it doesn't increase our blood supply as well as walking, elliptical, light exercises, even doing your same routine that you would necessarily do, but just with lighter weights, like somebody mentioned. And so that's where your consistency would play the biggest role in to helping you feel better, even when you're like, I'm just so sorry. I don't want to do anything else. I've been there, believe me. I used to play college sports and college soccer, to be more specific. And we had a lot of DOMs, especially preseason, let's be honest. And doing stuff, light recovery activity, is the biggest way of helping you to recover faster or eliminating some of the barriers for healing. Anybody have questions on some of those aspects? Yes, fatigue also makes it harder to get out the door for recovery activity, especially when you're like, it's just a recovery activity. It's not really going to build strength, but it actually does. It helps with that brain to body connection. It helps you get that blood supply really going. Foam really is another one that helps with blood supply. That goes back to the mobility work a little bit, but it's really getting your body moving as a whole is the best way to eliminate or decrease your DOMs and how long it's going to last. If you have DOMs that's really bad, do you think that even in a couple of days you're going to be able to bump back up and lift heavy? What do you think? We got some yeses, we got some nos. It's a no. So you don't want to cause too much extra micro tears in your body before it's had time to heal some of them. And so you want to take note of that. So even if the workout says, I want you a 6 out of 10 for the first round, a 6.5 or 7 out of 10 for the second round, and a 7 out of 10 for the last round. This is RPE. I'm going to get into in a second if you're not quite aware of it. So it means that we don't quite want to push that far. When it comes to if we have a potential for injury, it's going to be whenever we are set up already a step back as a whole. And so this comes in to listening to your body of, if I was healthy and ready, I would probably lift like 30 pounds in this exercise. If I have DOMs that I'm still getting over, now what am I looking for my 7 out of 10, my rate of perceived exertion? It might be back at 25 pounds, might still be 30, And so thinking about what that rate of perceived exertion or how much do you want to lift, how much should you lift, is where you eliminate some of the risk for injury. Also, our brain has this wonderful ability to try to protect itself. If we think in our brain that this muscle is too fatigued, so we're sore in our glutes, if we think that our glutes are just so fatigued, then our body will probably try to not use our glutes quite as well for those exercises. And so that means that dropping your weight a little bit, focusing in on form a little bit more is going to help you to make your brain use that body part more and override the system a little bit and say, it's okay, it can do this amount of load. It probably can't do this amount of load, but it can definitely do this amount of load. And so that's where reducing the amount that you would be lifting in that exact moment, in that time period, helps you to build those connection points and say, no, I can use this muscle, even if it's really tired. And if we don't lessen the weight, then the brain will be like, oh, that one's done. I'll try to use this other muscle instead. I'm going to actually switch over and try to use my quads more because I know that I can still push with that. And it may cause more undue stress on your back if you're not using your glutes and you end up using more of your quads and give you that risk for injury. And so this comes into how heavy can you lift and how to keep a more heavier load to gain more strength, because there's a huge movement now, which is good, to lift heavier, but you have to know when that is a good thing and when it gives you more susceptibility for injury. Mary Kay said, what is the approximate percentage to reduce? Honestly, it depends on how you feel. That's why I love the rate of perceived exertion, because whenever you're looking actually at rate of perceived exertion here, those are like the 6.5, 7 on a lot of the different exercises or loaded exercises that you have. That's one, your reps in reserve. So if you have 7 out of 10, you have supposedly 3 to 4 reps in reserve. Okay. And that means you're pushing pretty hard. Like if you think about it, either your form is going to lax or you really only have 3 reps left in the tank. You're working. You know that you're working hard in that. And if you push that you're working hard, then your susceptibility for injury goes up, because the higher load that we lift, the more that we have to be more specific with how we lift. And if you're tired or fatigued, then your form is going to falter, and that plays into your reps in reserve. How many more reps in reserve do you have with good form? And that comes into that play. Also, what comes into play with RPE that doesn't come in with just using reps in reserve is how hard do you perceive that exercise with that load? And that comes into more of our physiological response, where we can look at if we have cycles, if we're going through menstruating, how do we feel at that time of the month? Do we feel super lethargic where everything is just like hard? Or are we ready to go? And same thing for menopause, where things are shifting and moving, and we're figuring out how to give ourselves the right nutrition, the right things for it, that we are missing that component at that certain time of the day, that we need to lessen our rate of lessen our load to meet that rate of perceived exertion of how hard we think something is. And it's more difficult in the beginning. And so I tell people, give yourself wiggle room, especially for the first like month, maybe 2 months, where you're starting to learn where your rate of perceived exertion is for these different exercises and how much can you push. And also another thing that goes in with lifting heavy and keeping up there is if it's an 8 out of 10 for RPE, the risk of injury goes up exponentially. I tried to find the exact article that I read. I think there was a couple of them, and I just honestly ran out of time before this. And it says if you have lift to RPE of 8 or 10, 8, 9 or 10, then your risk of injury goes up. And so that's why most of my stuff stays at a 7 at the highest, or even does two rounds at a 7. If you're looking to even gain more weight that you're lifting or load that you're lifting, feel free to add another round to it and add another set where you're lifting another 7, maybe 7.5 out of 10 for that. One thing I didn't talk about with DOMs is nutrition, making sure you're getting enough protein, making sure you're eating enough carbs and fat to give yourself the ability to get those groceries into those different muscle and connective tissues areas. Is this helpful for y'all? This helped answer some questions about DOMs and how to counteract it and how to give yourself the best things possible. Mary Kay said, if you have DOMs, the same reps, less weight. Yeah, I would do the same reps and just decrease the weight amount is what I would do. Did that answer everyone's question about RPE? That was kind of the most I was going to dive into it right now. How much is enough carbs roughly? Oof. This is an area that is not my specific expertise. I feel like there's an entire Pandora's box that's open. I know the amount of protein is about how much you weigh, like grams per protein is about how many pounds you are. And so that correlates over. I don't know the amount of carbs that you need to go with that or the macro counts with that, honestly. I would say following a nutritionist, the nutrition mechanic, Dina, she is a great one. I can give you some information for her, and she would be the best one to have asked that question to, and she can give you a great response for how much that is. Caroline says yes, but should we expect DOMs? Is it a marker for the workout being was way too much? So I'm glad that you brought this back up. It's not a marker for this is a great exercise. I have DOMs. I really worked out hard, and it's not a marker of I didn't do enough either. Sometimes as we age, Carolyn, it's one, I think I'm going to bring up that you had a jump clinic this past weekend. And so you're sore from that. It's new and different activities. Sometimes it's the amount of how full your cup was. So I give a relationship of when you need more rest is how full your cup is. And so every time you work out, every time you exercise, every time you do some of your cardiac activity, some of your sport, you're filling your cup up more. And eventually you need to rest and recover a little bit, even active rest, just an easy walk, easy light workout where you pour some water out of your cup. And so instead of it looking at the entire thing, instead of looking at your entire thing where you're filling your cup up, we piecemealing, we look at just single bits and pieces. And so it always adds up to what did you do before that? What did you do the day before that? What did you do even 2 days before that? That your body is still having to recover from, that you may feel like in that workout, you should have potentially dropped your weights and you may not have gotten DOMs from that workout if you had dropped some of your weights then. Or it's that you did your workout first because that's a priority to you at this time in the year, this time of the month. And so you put that first, and now you have that consistency of building because you're not having so many other factors falling in before you actually did that workout. This also comes in with consistency because if you cherry pick and you just do some different workouts here and there, then you're not building your body's ability to withstand and to not have DOMs come in because you're not consistent enough with those actual exercises and with those actual workouts. There's certain workouts that will make you potentially have more DOMs, and those are quicker, like HIIT workouts, and those can make you more sore. And a lot of it's due to the connective tissue strain that you can feel in that, especially as we age. And so it's not I did too much in that workout. It's potentially that you did too much. It's looking at your entire week and did you rest and recover? Did you set yourself up for success so you could have a good strength workout And so you could push yourself a little bit there and looking at that type of thing. And did you do any nuanced things while you were riding or while you were kayaking? Like, what did you do in those aspects? Look at some of the other things. Mary Kay, is there an RPE chart? There is. On every single workout that has some lifting, you will see a rate of perceived exertion video and chart that goes along with that. And it'll give you a little bit more example of how to use it too. What if I'm just feeling fatigued but not sore? Should I change my workouts? I think the answer that you're looking for is with rate of perceived exertion, it's how do I feel fatigue wise? How hard is something? And how many reps in reserve do I have? That's that combination of RPE. And so if you think about it in that regard, yes, you'll drop your weights a little bit because your body isn't doing as well as it needs to be doing. And you need to give it a little bit. And that's where we use that RPE instead of cycle tracking, instead of some of these other things that may not exactly fit you, because maybe you're a person that has endometriosis and your period week is just not good. Maybe you don't have that, and your period week is when you feel the best and you are ready to rock and roll. Like maybe day one is not good, and then day two, you are ready to hit the ground running. And that's where we can use the rate of perceived exertion to match both of those women for if they're in their cycles. And also if you're premenopausal or menopausal, then things are changing, especially premenopausal, and things are a little bit more consistent, but they're different from where they were before if you're menopausal. Does that help answer all of those questions as far as lifting heavy and also DOMS, keeping your consistency using rate of perceived exertion? How's everybody feel with that? I feel like this is a really big area that a lot of people have issues with, and people drop off and people don't keep their consistency and they don't feel like they're getting the best out of their workouts if they're potentially not getting DOMS. Got a yes from one. While you guys are filtering in, one last thing for lifting heavy and preventing injuries is as you're lifting heavy, you are going to be paying attention to where you are getting more tight. And I'm not talking about just muscle soreness, I'm talking about the precursors to some pain. And this will lead you into, am I setting myself up for success? Am I setting myself up for potential injuries down the road? Because as you lift more heavy, the potential injury or the risk of injury goes up. But so does our ability to gain more muscle, increase our bone density, and it has so many good physiological effects on us that we need to do some of that too. But if we are doing deadlifts and we feel a tightness in our back, not a muscle soreness in our back, like our back was working for us, but a tightness from potentially our spine having issues, then that's our cue. Maybe our form wasn't as good, or maybe we couldn't load that as well. We struggled with our form due to the amount of load. And so that means that we were more at a 10 out of 10 for our RPE instead of a 7 or 8 out of 10, which is what you were aiming for with that particular lift. And it can go for any place else in the body, but just pay attention to those tightness effects because they will clue you in on, do I need to drop my weight? Do I need to change my form? Do I need to do something different with a breath or a core activation to help support myself? And so that's a little caveat for how you can continue to lift heavy and reduce your risk of injuries there. Susan says, I'm in menopause. I started lifting heavy and I feel fatigued all the time. Not during the workout, but for days later. What's up with that? We need more rest and recovery as we age. And also, sometimes we need more carbs to help us, and sometimes we need more hydration to help us. If we're not eating enough protein, that can also play a role into it as well. And also, some of the times we try to do too many things on so many days, and we don't make our hard days hard and our easy days easy. because we spread them out and we think that spreading them out is the best factor, the best thing to do. But we end up doing something every single day instead of having true 1 or 2 days a week of rest, recovery, light, easy activity. And that is one of the most common things I see whenever somebody is dealing with a fatigue issue when they're in menopause, and having that be one of the biggest factors of it. Another aspect is sleep. And sleep is hard whenever you get into menopause because it's just, it's a can of worms. There's so many different things that affect it. Right now, pregnancy insomnia. Oh my gosh, I slept like hell last night. I was supposed to go for a ride today, and I told my husband I was gonna go sleep on the front porch. I needed more. I need more sleep, and I did not get it last night. And so I skipped my ride today, which I had full intentions of doing, and it was gonna be great, and it was a beautiful day, but I know I needed rest. And so I just laid down on the front porch, and I just was just like, rest days are so boring. This is what Rebecca says. They can be for sure, but they're so important for us. If we don't give ourselves the rest, then we don't progress forward. It's just that important with it. It's so important. Um, yes, we all need those rest days. And a lot of times whenever we push, 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 we don't do as well with the rest times. Another thing is go get yourself looked at. See if you're low on some of your hemoglobin. See if you're low on some of your iron. See if you're low on some of these other thyroid things that can happen and pop up later on in life. Blood work, blood panel done, just to dot some I's, cross some T's. They can not come back anything and you're just like in the same boat, or you can come back with some different ways that you need some help. Maybe you're low on vitamin D too, but these are all things that you have to get checked out before you start going on a regimen towards those, for sure. Balancing play and work. And I say work as in workouts. I already talked about some of this. We talked about consistency. We talked about how you want to make your hard days hard, your easy days easy. Those are some of the biggest important parts of when you're integrating in your sport and working out. The other aspect that comes into play with this is, what season are you in? Are you off season and you have off season goals of increasing your strength? Are you on season where you're in more of a maintenance type program and you are keeping things consistent? You're gaining a little bit, but you're not pushing it hard in your workouts. You are working, if you're in season, then you're doing shorter workouts. You can always shorten any of the workouts that I have for you. One, instead of doing 3 rounds, do 2. Or do half of the workout, and then the next day, do the other half of the workout. Make sure you add back in the warm up too, again, if you're going to start it again. Don't just start in the middle and be like, all right, I'm ready to hit this ground running. And so you can split things up a little bit more. And so making sure that you have those periods where, and some people say, well, I ride year round or I kayak year round. Yes, a lot of us do. But there's times that you do it more and there's times where you do it less. And when you are doing it more, and those are more the maintenance, the lower load times, and whenever you are doing it less, then that's whenever you need to change your focus in it. There's been so many studies done for kids because kids have been shown to hyper focus into a sport way too soon now. And that's because they get left behind a lot of times by the ones that are hyper focused into that sport because they do multiple sports, which is the best for our body when it comes to growing up and evening out. And so we need different times in the year that we have on season and we have off season things. And we need to take note of when those 2 time periods are and when we want to focus on pushing versus not pushing as much. And that's for you to decide what fits your life the most, and whether you back off a little bit on your RPE for some of the exercises and the workouts, or whether you are ready to push it because you're in the off season right now. Any questions on that? Also focus on your mobility. It's important for keeping your body healthy, keeping your joints moving, not feeling too tight. And because you recovered from DOMS and now you're just tight and sore and you feel like you need to stretch all the time. Mobility programs are very meticulously added into or built for y'all into this program, into this membership. And so if you want to do it 3 times a week, if you want to do it daily, take note of that. I made them specifically for y'all. Any questions on that before we start moving? Everybody feel golden with some of that stuff. How does everybody feel? Was this helpful to go through over this DOM stuff and to go through lifting heavy and adding in? Cool, we got a good to go, we got a yes. Perfect. Awesome. All right, core stuff. Core and hip flexors. This is an important area for us as women because as we tend to think about our core, we tend to have heard so many different things of how to activate our core. We've looked at how, like, suck your belly button to your spine. We've looked at or heard just hold it in, suck your belly in. And what are some of the things that you think about whenever you're thinking about tightening up your core? I'm just curious what you've listened, what you've heard in. What have you heard in that? The core is more the stomach. Sit up straight. Another one. What else? Oh, it's more than the stomach. Yes. Yes. I'm glad that you made that correction. Tightening the core, does it include the pelvic floor? I'll go into that. To use it. Yes, Shay. Cool. So, as was mentioned, core is more than just the stomach. Core is the front part of our abs. Tilt this down a little bit so you can see. You can see my big old belly. So as we think about our core, it's our abs. It's how it wraps around and connects into our back here. It also is our pelvic floor, our diaphragm, and included in that are our lat muscles that come down in. Included in that is part of our glutes here. And we can also potentially include some of our rib cage intercostal muscles here as well. And as we think about core, we want to think about it's our ability to support our spine, our trunk, so then we can move the other appendages off from it with power. Because if you stabilize something, then you can move something with force away from it. If I have socked feet on wood floor, I do not have my base of stability to push anything. I'm just going to slide. I'm not going to be able to use my body appropriately enough. But if I take off those socks or I put shoes on, now I can grip the floor, I can stabilize myself, and I can give a nice strong push. That is the using your core or not using your core. And so if I'm not using here, I can't use the other parts of my body that are needed for it. Now, some of y'all may have seen where I said, I don't want you to squeeze your glutes at the top part of a deadlift or squat. The reason why is because if we just think about our glutes in that, we miss the main component that makes our glutes work. We have to use our core. Using our core will make our glutes work. If you just think about squeezing those glutes and pinching that penny at the top, then you may get here to work, or you may get here to work, and you're not getting this front part of the cylinder to work. And so I can think about this, and I'm really squeezing my glutes at the top, but I'm not in the right position here. Versus if I think about keeping myself nice and straight and I go up strong, now I'm using my glutes, but my base comes from here. And so that's why it's so important to not just focus in on singular muscles, but almost think about the movement pattern that it's making, or using an external cue of I want to be nice and straight as an arrow with my body and my posture, and that will give me that ability to integrate my glutes, to integrate my core, and to set myself on top of it nice and even. And so using your core as your stability and base gives you that ability to use your glutes more. It gives you that ability to use your hips more. It gives you that ability to use your shoulders and control that. That being said, one of the most common factors when it comes to core and hip flexors is that we will start using our hip flexors in replacement of our core. And that's where it comes into problems. Because anybody know where our hip flexors attach to and from? Anybody know? It attaches from our femur. I'll give you that one. Yep, the front of the top leg, the low back. Yes. It also connects into the inside part of our pelvis. So if you put your hands just on your side here, you'll feel the top of that crest of your pelvis. Your iliacus comes up and attaches on the inside part of your pelvis there. Your psoas muscle, which is part of your iliopsoas muscle, the iliacus is the ilio part, the psoas muscle is the other part. It comes in and connects up to kind of the lowest part of your back here, running through your body to get there. And so one of the things that can happen is that if I don't control my core, my trunk, with my core muscles, then my hip, as it pulls up, will not have that stable base to pull from, because it's wanting here to be nice and stable and still as I'm pulling up and shortening from my femur. It's pulling up from there. And so if we're doing a core exercise where we tighten up and control our core, we flatten it across here, and we keep our back nice and still, and now our hip flexor is working to move our leg, it shouldn't feel hard. Because as we're up and standing, whenever we lift our leg and we walk all the time, that's so much more to lift and move than it would be here reaching and lifting a leg. But a lot of people will feel their quads and their hip flexors working. And that's your clear sign I'm not using here well enough to keep my back still. So then my hip flexor can just do one thing and control and move my thigh. Another thing to note in that is that actual core activation. I want everybody to lay on their back for me, and I just want you to tighten up your core. Do you feel the center more so of it, or do you feel it flattening across your abdominal muscles? Take a little moment for you to do that. Just tighten up your abs however you're typically used to tightening them up. The center across. Who else? Anybody else feel the center? Anybody else feel across? Has anybody else thought that it's forever hard for you to use your lowermost abs? Terry says the center. Who else? So I want you to feel it as a tightening across your stomach. So if we think about just the center, then that's more of our rectus abdominis here. And that's more of our six-pack muscle. The problem with just having it there is that that muscle doesn't directly tie in to the back. It's not helping you with your cylinder of your core. And so if we tighten up across it, then now we're using our obliques, our internal, external obliques, our transverse abdominis muscles on the side, and that comes across and around our body and connects into what's called the thoracolumbar fascia in the back. And so if you're feeling it in the center, take a deep breath for me and blow it out like you're blowing out birthday candles. This should make you feel more flattened across your stomach, and you should feel it more along the sides than you did before. Relax, take a deep breath, and you should feel that nice tightening up through there. This is important, not only for our hip flexors and our other core exercises, but also for our deadlift. And the deadlift is one of the best exercises, in my opinion, but also one of the most easily to be done incorrectly and cause other issues happening. Before we move into the deadlift, does everybody feel it across their belly now instead of centrally in their belly for their abdominal muscles as they contract? We got a yes? We got a somewhat? Terry, work on that breath in. I bet that whenever you are breathing in, you're probably breathing in more through here. So think about breathing in and letting that stomach expand in with the air. And then as you breathe it out, then that's that it's coming from here to push out, or you're not pushing out enough here. Another way that you can do this if you don't feel it across is get a straw from the next restaurant that you go to, because they always give them, and breathe out through that straw. That will make you push the air out quickly through the straw, and it will activate across your stomach better. The key is that you have to stop thinking about how you would typically want to turn on your abdominal muscles. You have to kick that out of your brain because it's not the correct motor pattern for you to have right now. You need a different motor pattern. You change that up because that's what's giving you more back issues, because you are activating more here versus across and using that core as that corset to keep nice and still. I hope this helps everybody in that. But yeah, that straw is golden. You should have seen me. I had this one guy, he was member of the SWAT team, and I had him doing squats with breathing out through a straw because he couldn't tie in his brain to body connection. He was just so used to doing everything else. But once I got him breathing through that straw with the squats, man, he was golden. He was able to tie it in, able to get it done, and able to reconnect his body through that back pain that he was going through. Cool. Perfect. We got several people on top of it. Understanding that's key. So now let's move into the deadlift. So the deadlift, and I'm going to try to tie this up in like 15 minutes. So the deadlift is going to be the main, probably last topic. If we are feeling like we want to go into more different topics here, I want to know, we may do another one in December, and I obviously be a little bit more pregnant then. So as long as you don't care about that, I don't mind going through it. You just got to deal with a little bit bigger belly. I'm still going to be working out. And we're going to be moving and grooving until the bitter end. So, especially now since I don't feel like crap like I did in my first trimester. Oof, that was rough. So the deadlift, biggest things that we need to think about for here is straight back or flat back in it, and that our hips are our main driver and power here. This is not the main power here that's using our back. It's here is the main power here. This guy, our hips are. This is made to have load with motion. Our spine is not made to have load with motion. And so, couple of things that I want you thinking about as you're doing your deadlift. We're going to go through the good morning first. That's the base move of your deadlift. That's the hip hinge part, because the base move, hip hinge of good morning, is your same bent over position that I have you doing so many other different exercises in, because I want to strengthen this particular position for you. It's just so functional for you picking up a kayak, for you riding downhill on your bike, for lifting anything you have around the house, and just building and loading your hips with more resistance and load, and loading your spine with more resistance and load, so it prevents osteoporosis and helps you grow more bone density. And so loading this position is going to help you stay healthy as a whole, as long as you don't put too much stress on your back. And so as we think about our spine here, we want to do that same contraction. We got that nice activation here where we're tightening across our stomach. We now probably feel it a little bit more into our back here, of like just a nice hug per se. As we think about our pelvic floor, and as we do that exhale, so this is me relaxing, our pelvic floor is going to come up nicely up into us as well. And so we want to make sure that we're not bearing down through our pelvic floor as we are putting pressure in through here. And so it comes up to play as we're tightening up across here. It doesn't push down as we're doing that. We're not thinking about like almost going pee and putting pressure downwards, or almost going poop and putting pressure downwards, because that's where you put more pressure into your pelvic floor that's undue and not needed. It's not a bearing down as you're going to lift. It's a coming up and together as you're getting ready to lift. And so now that we got that exhale, that contraction, pelvic floor raises, now I want you to think about shifting your hips back. If there's something that's behind you, like a wall, I want you to think about bringing your butt back to that wall. Some people like to push into their hips like this, and so you push their hips back as they're starting. Other people, I love having a PVC pipe, a broomstick, something that gives them direction of where they are in space. I'm choosing this because it's bigger and hopefully you can see it on my back better. So it goes to the top of your butt crack, your mid back, and your head. Knees are soft. And we're just bringing our butt back, and our hips come up and forward. Butt comes back, hips come up and forward. And we're keeping our spine nice and straight. One of the biggest factors I see whenever it comes to deadlifts is that we do our good morning. This is where we should stop, but we're like, the floor is farther away from me. I feel like I should go down further. And they may not go down this far, but you see what happens to my back. I have no more hamstring length here when I'm here at this position. That's part of the reason why I know that this is my stopping position right now. And so as I come down, I feel that end point and I stop there. As we're going to do regular deadlifts, then that's when my knees come down and I grab the loads up and forward. That's how I know when I need to bend my knees to do more of my deadlift lift. For a good morning, that's how I know that I need to stop. My back is staying nice and flat. I have that nice activation through here. If you need a little bit more love for your back because it's starting to feel tight, then I want you to think about doing a little bit of a tail tuck. So think about if you had a bee stinger sticking off your into your butt, you're pointing that down just so slightly. It's not that I want you to round your back with that bee stinger. It's just a touch. And I don't know if you can even see that, but it just activates here, the lowest most part of my abs, just a little bit. And you probably, if you're up doing this with me, then you probably feel your glutes turn on. This is what I mean by don't squeeze your glutes at the top, because here's already working for you. Here is how you get your glutes to work. It's your core. If you forget about your core, you're going to be likely to have more back issues. So don't squeeze your glutes at the top. They should just do it naturally. And you should feel that activation. But it's not something that you were consciously thinking, I need to pinch pennies at the top of that lift. I want everyone to try this good morning for me. Even if you're fantastic at deadlifts, I want you to do this. I want you to feel where that stop end point is. Can you feel it? Where your hamstrings get tight and you're like, not going to move anymore. I shouldn't go down any more past this point. Because that's your clue whenever you're doing a full deadlift to bend your knees at that point in time. Got one? Yep. Who doesn't feel it? Does anybody not feel this? This is the biggest area that people miss out on and why you get injured for your deadlifts. The other area is how you push yourself away from the floor. Because a lot of people will think about pulling the weight up instead of pushing the weight, pushing the floor away from you. And so what I mean by that is if I'm holding a weight here, I can either think about initially pulling the weight up here, which will make me want to bend and arch my back. If I think about pushing the floor away and straightening my body up, then that's going to make me bring my hips forward. That's the initial part of the lift, is the hips. The hips are doing that motion. And so instead of pulling the weight up through here, I'm pushing the ground away, or I'm thinking about standing up tall. Arms are connection points to the weight here. The other part with the arms is that we want to keep your load close to the body. So we're using those lats that are part of your core I talked about earlier. I'm waving this around like I'm like flagging my finger at you. And so keep your weights closer to you as you're doing this, and that'll integrate your lats. They come down and connect over to here from your shoulder. That will help you connect in and use your upper back and support that with your core. How does this feel? Kind of take the weight out of the arms. It's that we're not actively like trying to pull it from here. You're dangling and you're keeping the weight close to your body is what you're doing. And that's what's going to keep your lats engaged with that. But it's not that you're initially pulling with your upper back and with your arms. It's that you're really standing up straight or pushing the ground away from you. If your hamstrings are tight, that will mess up your form a little bit. But you know, one of the best ways of stretching your hamstrings is by doing deadlifts. They've done different studies that show actively doing eccentric loaded exercises. This may be something you want to add on to yourself with a lighter weight, but going down to that edge of where you feel they're tight and coming back up, going down the edge, coming back up, that works your hamstrings, but it also lengthens them. And so it's one of the best ways to actually get more hamstring length. Hamstrings only engage when I push my butt out enough. One of the things that you want to get your glutes to work a little bit more, bend your knees a little bit more. Otherwise, you're going to feel mostly hamstrings. And so if you bend your knees a little bit more, as I've said, you'll go down to where you feel your hamstrings, bend your knees, and that will get you more towards the floor. And so that also engages your glutes more. But coming back up, you should feel those glutes kick in, especially if you give that ever so slightly little tail tuck. So going again, talking it forward. I have my weight that I'm holding. My weights that I'm holding here. I activate. And my knees, butt shifts back, keeping my weights close to me. That's my area that I'm stopping for my good morning. And I stand up nice and tall. Stand up nice and tall. And if I feel it in my back, I come down, I give it a little tail tuck, and I hold that tail tuck as I'm going through my rep count. If I'm going all the way to the floor, doing a more regular deadlift, my weights are on the floor. I come down, I get myself set. Feel like my hips are definitely a little higher than my knees. That's what I want to be. And now I push the ground away, set myself, make sure I'm good. I come back down. I give myself another rep count, or I can come down, stop, give myself a bit, come down, activate, slide tail tuck, make sure my chest is nice and up, push, touch, push, touch, push, touch, and stop. How's that feel for everybody? Terry, I think that goes back to that, you feel that center rectus abdominis position. And so it's getting that activation here. And so practicing with more of that as you're doing that hip hinge, as you're doing that good morning with a lesser weight will help you a ton. Also getting that little bit of a tail tuck in. And if it's that you're feeling it upper back through here, it may be that you're either too rounded in that and that you're not tits out with it, because I can move here separate than here. And so if I'm folded here, I can still control, but I want to be nice and set on top of my body, nice and straight. And so that can make you feel it in your upper back and have that pinching, or you might need some mobility in that upper back. How's everybody else feel? Mary Kay, work in progress. Make sure to use up that broomstick if you need to with it, and don't go down too low. Stop before you think you need to stop. All right, y'all, have a fantastic night. And if there's other areas that I may be able to just do a short video on, I may do that, as long as you don't mind pregnant Liz. And y'all have a fantastic evening. Bye, y'all. We love the dummy. I'm glad. Glad somebody does at this moment. Starting to get in my way. Bye, y'all.